Hope everyone is doing great. This is Pratishta, your IELTS trainer. And in this session, we are going to talk about some advanced grammar concepts like conjunctions and clauses. So we will have conditional clauses. And then we are also going to talk about some sort of relative clauses, right? Relative clauses, conditional clauses, and some conjunctions, basically. So overall, today's session is based on grammar, right? And how to write a little bit more complex topics and a little bit more complex, I would say, clauses. So there we go. Let me just get straight to the point and yeah. So if you can see, we are going to be talking about introduction to advanced grammar, clauses and conjunctions, right? So this is going to be about clauses and conjunctions. In today's session, we will cover what are independent, dependent, relative, conditional clauses. So if you remember, we have done independent and dependent before. Independent were the clauses who do not require any support or assistance from the other. Dependent is the one which requires a help from the other clause to make sense. We have relatives, which needs this, that. I mean, we discussed it in the review video, I would say. And then we have conditional, some sort of conditions, right? Oh, etc. Okay. So we will also talk about how to use conjunctions effectively, although we have done like a little bit more about conjunctions before. And then we will also try to see how to, improve the complexity of the sentences using clauses and conjunctions. So understanding independent and dependent clauses in this case. What is an independent clause? An independent clause can stand alone as a complete sentence. It contains a subject and a verb, right? So for example, it says, I, which is a subject, my homework. It's a object, finished is a verb, right? So it can have a subject, object, and a verb. What is a dependent clause? Dependent clause cannot exist alone. It depends on an independent clause to form a complete sentence. Because it was raining. Again, now it cannot stand alone by itself, right? Because it was raining does not give the proper information. It was because of what it was raining, right? So combining these clauses, they will create more complex sentences and we will be able to, understand it in a better way. Now, what are relative clauses? Relative clause adds extra information about a noun and usually starts with relative pronoun like who, which, or that. Those are relative pronouns. The book that I borrowed from the library was interesting. It's talking about this book. It's giving extra information, was interesting. The relative clauses can be essential or non-essential depending on the information. So this can be an essential information or it can be a non-essential information, right? They are a type of subordinate clause that gives additional information about a noun and in the main clause. They are introduced by relative pronoun. We have done the definition. So now, defining or restrictive relative clauses. These clauses provide essential information about noun. Without them, the sentence would lose its meaning or become unclear. The man who lives next door is a doctor. The clause who lives next door is essential to identify which man we are talking about, right? Then we have relative pronouns, which are who, which, and that. So again, we discussed it before in the review section. Who is for people, which is for things or animals, and that is for people, things, often interchangeable with who or which. But usually, preferably, we will use who and which. So example are the woman who works here is very kind, talking about that particular woman who works here. The book that I borrowed is interesting. So the book that I borrowed, it's an extra information. Then we have non-defining relative clauses. Non-defining means that they will provide extra information, but it's non-essential. If removed, the sentence still makes sense. My brother, who lives in Paris, is coming to visit. Now, who lives in Paris just adds extra information, but is not really identified. I mean, I only have one brother, right? So my brother does not matter where he lives. It's just that he lives in Paris, that's all. Non-defining clauses are often separated by a comma, right? So here they are separated by two commas. London, which is the capital of UK, is very expensive. Now we know which London we are talking about, right? But we are adding a non-essential information that's not really necessary, but it's the capital of UK and that's all. So key points to remember: who would refer to people, which refers to things or animals, that can replace who or which in a defined relative clause means where it is necessary, but never in non-defining relative clauses. So I cannot write my brother that lives in Paris. No. Whose talks about possession. My brother, whose book I have borrowed. Where refers to places. The park where we first met. When refers to time. The university when you were just a kid, something like that. Now, let's see some activities. The man dash I met yesterday, right? The man, I cannot say which I met because it's for things. So it's who I met yesterday. The book dash you gave me is very interesting. The book, who is for people, so that. This is the house dash was built in the 18th century, which was built. The woman who lived next door is a doctor. The cake which he baked for the party was delicious. I can also write that, but I would prefer which. She has a friend who, oh sorry, whose father, because I am talking about friend's father, right? Here it's an apostrophe, like friend's father. Who father? No. The school which I used to attend is now closed. This is the dog who won the competition last year. The car that she drives is very expensive is also fine, or which she drives is very expensive is also fine. The movie that we watched last night was amazing. Now that was all about your like relative clauses and relative pronouns. Now we have conditionals. Conditionals basically talk about possible, impossible, or hypothetical situations. If this happens, then what? So zero condition means it's fact. If you heat water, it boils. It's a fact. First conditional means possible future. If it rains, we will stay inside. Second condition is unreal situations. If I won the lottery, this can still happen. It can still rain, right? If it rains, then I will do this. This is if I win the lottery. It's like non-real, right? It's like millions in one chance. Third conditional is past unreal situations. If I had studied, I would have passed the exam. Past unreal. Now, it's just definition. Condition clauses express situation and their impossible outcome. They consist of two parts, if clause and the main clause. So if clause is the if this happens, main clause is then that would happen. So zero condition, if plus present simple, present simple. Here it's present simple. Here also it's present simple. General truth, scientific facts, or things that are always true. If you heat water to 100 degrees, it boils. It's a fact. The outcome is always true. First conditional, if present simple, future simple. So it would be present simple and future simple here. So possible conditions in future. If it rains tomorrow, we will stay indoors. It's a possibility in future. Second conditional, if past simple, would plus base form of the verb, means you don't do anything to it. If I won the lottery, past simple, I would, travel is like normal travel, to travel. So would, and then normal verb. Third conditional is if past perfect. Past perfect is have had. I have had studied, or she has had studied, etc. Would have and past participle, like normal past tense. If I had studied, perfect. I would have, it's past condition. Sorry, would, and then past. This is normal past tense. You also have mixed conditions, right? Which is unrealistic past condition with present result. So, for example, if I had taken the job previously, so past, perfect, I would be working in New York right now. So I would be is the normal form of, is the be form of, it's like the present. Right now, I would be doing this. So these are all the different conditions that you can take a look at and probably form sentences based out of. So let me share the next screen. Oh, sorry. And then we had to talk about, we did this. Now we are on using conjunctions to connect ideas. So in this part, we just need to understand what a conjunction. I think we have discussed all of this in detail before as well. So conjunctions are something that would join in two independent or dependent clauses together, right? And that is pretty much it. It's like for more complex sentence type. We have coordinating conjunctions, right? So we have coordinating conjunctions like we did the fanboys as well. So for, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. These will join some clauses together. Then we have subordinating conjunctions too, like because, although, since, while, unless, and this will join dependent clauses. But all of this we did in detail in the previous lesson. I would really suggest you to go ahead and check out that one as well. But this is essentially how we will combine two different kinds of clauses. For example, we have I want to go to the park, it is raining. I want to go to the park. If I want to combine it, I can say, but it is raining. He studied all night. He didn't pass the exam. I can say, even though. He studied all night. He did not pass the exam. Or he studied all night. However, he did not pass the exam. She will join us. She finishes her homework. She will join us as soon as she finishes her homework. So you are just essentially joining two different sentences together. Then you have common errors that can occur. You have sentence fragments. It is a dependent clause which cannot stand alone without an independent clause, right? So fragment, it's just like fragment. It's piece of a sentence, right? It's a small piece. That is what the meaning of fragment is in the first place, right? Then you have run-on sentences. Run-on sentences are, for example, I like pizza. I like cola. Here I could have put a full stop to make it grammatically correct, or I could have put a conjunction like and, but I did not. So this becomes grammatically incorrect. Overusing and is not the only conjunction. You have to write something more and beyond and, right? So you have to write something more beyond and. And that is pretty much it about conjunctions and some errors, that you can have with clauses. Again, you can create some complex sentences using all these kinds of conjunctions together. And that is pretty much it. Try to use it as much as you can. Try to use it when you're trying to write. I would say just get a list of all the conjunctions in front of you. Make sure you're using a lot of conjunctions, not all. Otherwise, it will just look, too much. But just a little bit of it so that it looks not too simple and plain. Right? So overall, we discussed the type of clauses today, like independent, dependent, relative, and conditional clauses. We used conjunctions to connect different clauses and different ideas together. There were some common mistakes that can happen, like a run-on or a fragment or using a lot of and. That is pretty much it. For homework, what I can suggest is you can write a 200-word essay on any of the topics that you would like, using all these kinds of clauses and conjunctions, and use all of this together and create something great, create a great essay, right? Because we are going to write essay eventually. So that is something that you can work on. With that being said, that is pretty much it for today's session. It is going to be a little bit more, advanced in coming days, because we are now moving towards a more advanced session. We will do more advanced and more complex, even reading, listening, writing, speaking topics as well. So make sure that you are thorough with all these small concepts, because they would pay a little bit more when, like eventually they would pay a little bit more. So that's pretty much it for this lesson. I will see you in the next class, hoping for some more activities. And you can always get a set of grammar practice online. So I would really suggest you practicing like that. And then eventually just writing. Just write and use those kind of clauses and sentence, and try to make complex clauses. Until and unless you don't make it, you don't make mistakes, you will not learn from it. So again, that's my suggestion. And I will see you in the next class.